Starting at the end of Season 13, Blaseball has been involved in a missing persons case. It's God's Day, Season 13. The election has passed, and Blaseball settles down to rest ahead of a fresh season. Yet, in the dark of night, two players disappear. Brisket Friendo of the Kansas City Breath Mints and Tad Seeth of the Charleston Shoe Thieves are missing from their spots in the lineup. This is noticed by players who now show the forlorn "Where'd you go, Friendo?" and "Bad beat, Tad Seeth" in their feeds. The league is shaken by these disappearances and demands answers. The commissioner is quick to respond, putting out a tweet promising that ownership were aware of the situation and that help had been found to solve this mystery. 2 detectives had been recruited from the ranks of the ILB. Uncle Plasma of the New York Millenials and Liquid Friend of the San Francisco Lovers. Season 14 begins, and fans wait with bated breath to see what would happen. It was at this point that the microphone got involved, tweeting 4 messages in quick succession. Fans used their collective knowledge to fill in the blanks, agreeing that the first message was Friendo for missing player Brisket. The next message had more possibilities. Almost all decided that the first word was no. The 2 leading theories for the rest of the message were what they want and what will work. 4 missing letters gave fans nothing to go on, but returning to the microphone's previous plans, they believed this message to be idle. The last message was straightforward: Plasma, referring to one of our detectives. And thus the call to action was issued. Fans rallied to idle both investigators to get them into the top 10 of the Idols board after Game 99. There was rejoicing when the monitor appeared to read the names of the MVPs, a list which included both Uncle Plasma and Liquid Friend. These 2 players gained the Ego Plus modifier. Having become MVPs, both detectives began to develop the case, stating they had a hunch. During the Season 14 election, both the Shoe and the Meadow, the home stadiums of the respective missing persons, became crime scenes, under the announcement, "The investigation is underway." Season 15 begins and the case is open. 2 missing players, 2 crime scenes, 2 detectives. On day 5, whilst playing against the garages, Liquid Friend sensed something fishy. Could it be the salmon weather they were playing under? Then on day 10, Uncle Plasma also senses something fishy. However, this time the weather was reverb. But they were playing against the garages. Could this team have something to do with the case? On day 15, both detectives were worried they'd missed something. So tension was high as day 31 dawned at the Shoe, seeing the first match either detective would play at a crime scene. Uncle Plasma entered the shadows to investigate, but found no clues. Undeterred, they went back to the shadows on day 32, but their efforts were once again in vain. The ILB held its collective breath on day 33, as whilst the Millennials were due back at the Shoe on day 37, anything could happen in the 3 interim games, and everyone wanted a break in the case. Uncle Plasma entered the shadows, carrying the hopes of the league with them, and their persistence paid off, as they found a clue. The investigation at the Shoe was concluded, a crime scene no more. From then, it was only a matter of time before the Millennials played at the Meadow, and on day 52, Uncle Plasma entered their next crime scene with purpose. Only to close the investigation there without announcing any further clues. After 52 days, the only lead in the case was traces of coffee at the shoe. Meanwhile, the rest of the league is facing other troubles. There has been a spate of further redactions, seeing players from several teams disappearing. What started with 2 missing persons now concerns 8 redacted players. With the lovers not scheduled to play at either crime scene the whole season, Liquid Friend takes a different approach to the investigation. Noticing that before the new players became redacted, they were all observed, Liquid Friend decides to become observed, allowing themselves to be hit by a ball the indebted York Silk sent their way. Clue 1. In order to be observed, you must have been hit by a ball from a player with the debt modifier. This breakthrough not enough for Liquid Friend, they took the ultimate risk, and on day 21, became redacted. So Liquid Friend is added to the timeline of redactions. Yet their sacrifice gives another new lead, changing a coincidence to a pattern, which is reflected across the rest of the redactions. On every occasion a player has changed from observed to redacted, they were playing in one of the coffee weathers. With Liquid Friend's breakthrough, it could be deduced that the traces of coffee found at the shoe must be from coffee weather. They also established that players are redacted after becoming observed, and that to become observed, you must have interacted with a debted player. But how does this link to things being fishy? Were there any clues in the meadow? Is Uncle Plasma holding back? On day 74, the league has lost 9 players. Things are looking dark, and with no more crime scenes, how will Uncle Plasma keep investigating? The late siesta passes, ballparks are renovated, and there is no further progress in the case. Sun 2 rises on day 78, as yet more players are becoming observed. 5 players from the Yellowstone Magic now bear the weight of a giant eye, with Kurt Kruller becoming observed for the 2nd time this season. The Magic were facing off against the Pies at home. Everything was proceeding as normal for Blaseball, when Kruller decided to check out the secret base that fans had installed at Yellowstone during renovations. Upon entering the secret base, Kruller becomes redacted. Meanwhile in Mildlow, the shoe thieves are playing the breath mints. Both teams still missing their players, and the thieves now down an extra teammate. When all of a sudden, out of the secret base at the shoe, emerges none other than Kruller, unredacted and bearing a new modifier, attractor. This modifier means that if Kruller were to score a run during this inning, they would be recruited to the team that were batting when they emerged. However, no run was scored, so Kruller was not recruited, yet was also not redacted again, disappearing back into the realm beyond the secret base, with their attractor modifier still in place. Following these events, Uncle Plasma felt that someone was keeping secrets, presumably as a result of having missed the chance to interrogate Kruller about the goings-on. Following this, it was fairly quiet. No more redactions, no more clues. Fans would not be blamed for thinking the case had come to a halt. Day 94 dawns during the last week of the season. In the Wild League, the Tigers face the Spies, in a game of no real consequence. But that was soon to change, as mid-game, who should appear out of the secret base but Tad Seeth, one of the original missing players. They are also unredacted and sporting the attractor modifier. Fans watch on, but as with Kruller, no runs are scored, and Seeth disappears once again. Was this the case cracked? One of the 2 missing players was cited, and proof had been found that players can be unredacted. Were all the missing players simply hiding beyond the secret base, waiting for their opportunity to re-emerge? The regular season had drawn to a close with no more redactions. Surely, this was the conclusion of the case. Yet the postseason had a twist to add to this tale yet. In the same game, not one, but two players from the Crabs were redacted. Yet neither was being observed at that moment, and it was also salmon weather. Uncle Plasma had a sinking feeling about this new development, fairly sure they knew what had caused it. Since ratings had been introduced to the ILB, teams that were heavy were sinking within range of a new threat: consumers. These creatures attack players, reducing their stats and eating some of their soul. The Crabs were carrying some weight to them, and as such, McDaniel had suffered 4 consumer attacks across the season, whilst Harrell faced 3. With the consumer attacks on day 104, both players had been reduced to 0 soul, and were immediately redacted as a result. Armed with this new knowledge, Uncle Plasma was able to piece the clues together. On day 5 of the season, there had been 2 consumer attacks in the Lovers v Garages game, when Liquid Friend had sensed something fishy. And 1 attack when the Millenials played the Garages on day 10. Being observed was not the only way to become redacted. If you had 0 soul left, that could also cause it. Season 15 ends, bringing with it some attempts to move the case along, as knowing how a player can become redacted has not returned the missing players to their teams. The Flowers and the Magic both attempt to bring a redacted player onto their lineup. This does not work. The players remain redacted, but also gain the unstable modification, making them more vulnerable to incinerations. The Garages take a different approach, re-rolling the debt modification in a hope to prevent observations. Debt was removed, but was also replaced with unstable. Meanwhile, the Breathmints, maybe wanting him to have another look at their stadium, steal Uncle Plasma from the Millenials. And just like that, the season is over. There are now 12 missing players, including one of the brave detectives. Whilst the mystery around redaction is becoming clearer, teams have been severely impacted, and the idle economy is in turmoil with the disappearance of McDaniel from play. With no news from Uncle Plasma since day 104, and the election bringing nothing new to light, hope is failing. Season 16 arrives. The Crabs open against the Garages. Then, out of the secret base, strolls Friendo, unredacted and now an attractor. The Crabs are batting, and 3.5-star batter Sylvain Roadhouse hits a home run, bringing Friendo home to score and recruiting them to the Crabs. Friendo is back in the league. They have gone from the Breathmints to redaction, out of the secret base, gained a tractor, and are now tucked away in the Crabs' shadows. They have no soul, but are otherwise safe and sound. As season 16 progresses, the secret base appears to be the key to the mystery, as, on day 5, Alyssa Harrell appears from it. Although they are not attracted to a team, it means that redactions by consumers are the same as redactions by observation, and players can return from either in the same manner. Then, on day 21, we also see the emergence of Millenials player Ren Hunter, who also does not score. Right before the Earl siesta, we see McDaniel appear and get recruited to the Miami Dollie. Not to be outdone, on day 28, Chorby Short makes no less than 3 appearances, yet does not score during this time. Of the 12 missing persons, 2 are now in the shadows. 5 have been unredacted and have the attractor modifier, whilst 5 remain redacted. Yet now we know that redacted players can and will return to the league, we can consider the case closed, and hope that the players enjoy their time in the realm beyond the secret base, and that the consumer problem will be solved by the time of their emergence. thank you for watching this Blaseball True Crime video. I will be back with more Blaseball fun and facts soon, but in the meantime, rejoice, play ball.